Well, speaking of diversity, it turns out that in Britain, real diversity has never been tried. So you may have previously, viewers may have seen Callum covering the... I mean, you can't call it a race war in Leicester because racially these people are exactly the same. It is some kind of ethnic/religious conflict that's going on between Hindus and Muslims in Britain in 2022. This is just the way things are going now, and it's just awful. And so we're going to have to talk about it. But before we do, if you want to support us, go to lotus.com, sign up, and go and watch the latest book club, which is Louise Perry's The Case Against the Sexual Revolution, where Connor and Harry are going through this with a critical eye. But they came away with very positive things. Have you read this, or have you heard of it?
No, I haven't read it. I saw her interview on trigonometry.
Oh, yeah.
And we follow each other online. I thought it was actually a really good interview.
Yeah.
Something that I find funny is how if a woman is a feminist, if a woman goes into the world of feminism and is logical and rational, they normally end up with reaching the same endpoint as conservatives.
Yeah.
Because I've experienced this with a lot of people, whether it's Megan Murphy, of course, Posey Parker or Kelly Bridget Fetisi. Yes, they reach the same conclusions in a very, very roundabout and conclusive and sometimes destructive way.
Yeah.
But they end up at the same point that pretty standard hardcore, like pretty straight down the line conservatives reach, whether it's on pornography and sex work or
Bridget's I wish I hadn't been a slut
families
I thought was quite powerful actually. It's like, look, this is the sort of thing that young women need to know. You can't take this back.
Yeah.
Once you go down this road, it's never coming back.
Well, this is one of the interesting things with the constant pull between conservatism and liberalism or even progressivism, which is people always want to think that they are infinitely smarter and have way better ideas than all the billions of people who came before us. Yeah. And sometimes we do. We certainly have better technology. But when something has been, there are exceptions to this, but if something, an institution, take an obvious example, marriage.
Yeah.
Right. This is something that's existed across all these countries and cultures and nations have risen, all these, and for thousands and thousands of years it's been there. And you come up and you think you're the first person who's thought of, maybe we can just do away with this institution and we can come up with some new thing. And then it all starts blowing up in people's faces in various ways. And they're like, oh, okay, maybe.
There's profound regret that can't be undone. That's the problem with it, And speaking of tradition, actually, I was going to start this with, I'm sure you were aware of Her Majesty the Queen's funeral. Mm-hmm. I have to say, look at that. That is just, isn't that just glorious, right? Like, I didn't even realize this stuff still existed. Mm-hmm. It's just great to see. And we'll come back to the old traditions of Britain in a minute because we have new traditions now. As I said on my Facebook page, look, this is like the majoritarian society of Britain. Like, this is like regular British people that you don't see represented in the media anymore. You don't see this on TV. And as I said, tomorrow we're going to have to talk about minorities again. And of course, the very next day, Callum and Harry had to cover the riots that had happened on the same day of the Queen's funeral, which was in Leicester, the diversity versus the diversity. Because, of course, saying, well, they're brown, aren't they? They're minorities, aren't they? That's not good enough. Weirdly, anyone and their mother could have told you this, but apparently we need to learn this the hard way. So, essentially there's some sort of religious war going on in many towns and cities across the country now. David Atherton posted this on Twitter, video, just how outside in Leicester, gangs of Pakistani Muslims are going around armed now, looking for Hindus on the streets. So great. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's not what we want right now.
No, it's not ideal, is it?
No.
And so we go to the ex-Labour MP for Leicester East, who decided that this was right-wing fascism.
Wait, this is what happens when you start with the conclusion and work your way backwards.
This weekend, we have seen unacceptable hate-driven violence. Ours is a community of deep faith. Our unique cultural diversity is our strength. Right-wing fascism and toxic extremism has no place in civil society.
Fascism.
Our communities in Leicester stand united against it. The Muslims and the Hindus.
Do you know what I love about these tweets is that you could very easily write an AI that comes up with when you see a lot of the progressive tweets, whether from the UK or the US, I'm like, you could just have a bot that just spits out. It's like Biden's tweets. You could just have a bot that just knows the lingo.
I mean, Claudia Webb essentially is a bot. She was a Labour MP for a while. She's mental, but I mean, I don't agree that fascism is right wing, and I don't agree that the right wing have anything to do with Hindus and Muslims fighting in the streets of Leicester.
But they just have these canned phrases that they use. Though. Diversity is our strength. They never explain it.
No.
Because
the diversity is currently engaging in a civil war. I mean,
Trudeau does the same, right? They just say these things, or when they say, we stand against X, toxic extremism has no place. They're just bots. They're NPCs.
Yeah,
high level.
Claudia Webb's constituency, I think she is actually still the MP for it, but she got kicked out of the Labour Party for threatening to acid attack a woman.
Good.
Yeah, she got convicted of that. And so she's still the MP, but not within the Labour Party, because she literally made several calls threatening a woman to acid attack her in the face.
They're so often nasty people.
They are.
There are certain types of people who think that you see this more on the left than you do on the right, because they think that if they have the so-called correct politics, they have the politically correct opinions on the various issues, then you can do and say whatever and treat people however, especially if they're on the so-called other side.
Yep. And
it's totally fine.
Well, this wasn't even a person on the other side. This was a woman
who
she thought was involved with her husband or something. So she phoned her up and was like, I'll throw acid in your face, bitch.
Wow.
It's like, okay, crusader for social justice. But also, I mean, if you want to know anything about Leicester, it's the place with the largest number of slaves in all of England.
In Leicester?
Yes, 10,000 slaves
a
few years ago were found in modern textile factories under Claudia Webb's auspices. So she's pretty awful, actually.
She says the right things on Twitter, though. So
exactly, she says the right things on Twitter.
But I don't say that flippantly, though, because this is really where we are in a lot of Western society, where everything's just about emotions and feelings and platitudes and words, not actions, not what's really going on. It's very, very shallow.
Oh yeah, it's totally shallow, and it covers up, it conceals this kind of genuine evil that's going on. Like this is crazy.
It does, and I'll tell you what's even deeper about it is. It seems clear that people, individuals, and societies, we can only be focused on a very small number of things at once. So when people are constantly distracted by all this sort of random nonsense, something like this. I mean, it's known that there are more slaves. There's more slaves now in the world than there are at any other time in history. Yeah. Stuff like this, stuff like human trafficking, stuff like, rapes and murders and general violent crime and so on. Things that everyone agrees on and would like to cut down. It all gets pushed to the side.
Oh yeah,
because they'd rather talk about nonsense.
Current thing, right?
Yes.
His current thingism. Like this should have been a massive story.
Yeah, no one knows this.
Exactly. No one knows this.
No one knows this.
And this should be internationally known. In England, in one city, there are 10,000 slaves.
Yes.
Like if you told me like 5 years ago, I'm like, no, there's not. That'd be ridiculous. Yeah. But of course, who is it? This is a very diverse area, and so the diversity is enslaving the diversity. And there's no English people involved. There's a diverse MP. There's no English people involved in any of this. And it's like, well, that maybe is actually to their detriment.
Yeah.
I don't think English people would have been accepting 10,000 slaves in one of
their cities.
No,
the thing is, people need to, the first point to caring about something is knowing about it. Yeah. I didn't know this. I know that modern slavery is an issue. And I've had people on my podcast, talking about the extent of it and human trafficking and so on. And some of the numbers they've had a guest on not long ago, actually from the U.S. who works on this in California, and he was saying, some of the numbers in human trafficking, sex trafficking, they're mind blowing. They're not.
I dread to think on the American border generally, not just California, but the whole thing must be awful.
Yeah, and I'm just like, this is not even. I was like, I think I'm pretty with stuff, and this is not on my radar at all. Yeah. So it's certainly not on most people's.
And this was only in 2020 as well. This was discovered.
And
so it's not like an old ancient history.
Has there been a follow up on this? Is this?
It was broken up, I believe.
Okay.
But it's, the thing is, like, the problem is on the ground. Like, you'll get a report. Oh yeah, we've shut down this factory or something. So, okay, but did they open up a new factory? Where have these people gone?
Yeah.
Who's accountable?
Did you
for
arrest
any of this?
people?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who's arrested? Who went to jail? And as far as I'm aware, nothing like that has actually happened. But anyway, so going back to the problem, it seems that Muslim groups have been radicalized on social media because several of the people have been arrested, have been sentenced because of what they've done. Leicester's police temporary chief constable, Rob Nixon, told the BBC that social media played a huge role in fanning the flames, as in fake news has been going around. There are significant things on there which are false, he said, citing assaults of people and attacks on religious establishments as examples. My plea is that please, if people are seeing information on social media, if they can't validate it, please don't circulate it. Well, I mean, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Fake news is definitely a problem. And especially when it's a Hindu mob has burned down this Muslim temple, or in like Pakistan, this Christian girl burned a Quran and then they just kill them.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but that wasn't real, and now someone's dead.
Yep.
And so they began protesting. Now, the initial protest apparently happened after a conflict at a cricket game, but that's not really what this is about, is it? Otherwise, you wouldn't get Muslims in Birmingham, not Leicester, notably, turning up at a Hindu temple, screaming Allah Akbar, and trying to get through the gates. Why?
Do you know what a lot of this is, though, is even moving away from where some of the focus of this is on the ethnicities and the religions and so on. When I see this, I just
Young
see
men, right?
angry young men who are probably lacking purpose and meaning and guidance and stuff to do. I mean, it's not women, it's not old men. It's just young men. I mean, you can see images like this in different places of different demographics of young men doing this, whether they are, it might be over something different. You can see there's white football hooligans.
All they need is an excuse, right?
Angry young black guys who are involved in it. This is just. I think there's much deeper things going on here in society, when it comes to young men. I feel the exact same way in the U.S. A huge conversation, of course, is school shootings and mass. And I'm like, this is all young men. It's all young men doing this.
Yep.
Typically between 15 and 25. All the gang killings, all the stuff like that age demographic, and it's men, it's not women. There's, and I think that
they're not invested in society. Right?
No, they're not, and I think this conversation is really overdue. I think for our whole lives, there's been the whole feminist imperative.
It's been the feminization of society, the feminization of schools, the education system, and like the very nature of a man being physically capable is offensive. It's wrong.
But then it manifests in these type of ways because men are always going to. When I see this, I'm seeing young men essentially jostling for some type of social status or respect or
an adventure as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm like, man, people like this. I don't know the exact answer, but like they need something to do. Like this is anyone knows you have sons, right? Yeah. So and we've been young boys. There's an energy. There's a masculine energy. We have something called testosterone, which is it's a powerful thing.
This is how I feel about the migrants who are, getting on the boats and sailing across and stuff. It's like, look, they're adventurers.
It's an adventure.
Exactly. This, 500 years ago, they would have joined an army and gone and attacked a city or something,
Risk taking.
Like, exactly. It's totally, it's the same people, just in a different century.
Yes.
And we're not capable of dealing with it. But anyway, let's carry on. They're lovely people at the thing. Look, there's just young men who want to fight something.
They want to, exactly.
They don't. It doesn't even matter really. But anyway, this carried on from Leicester to Birmingham to Smethwick. Don't even know where that is.
Smethwick.
Somewhere in Birmingham. Oh, this is the same one, right? Okay, right. It's a place in Birmingham, right? Okay, but yeah, not good. And this was on the heels of course, hundreds of Hindus and Muslims having armed clashes in the streets. And so the governments of India and Pakistan have demanded intervention. It's okay. If you can go to the next one, to the Telegraph article. Like, the governments of India and Pakistan are sending us letters saying, "Excuse me, we demand immediate action by British authorities to tackle ongoing disorder between Hindus and Muslims in Leicester." It's like, this is like the partition of India all over again. Like, this is just like, excuse me, the British government should be preventing us from fighting each other. So, God, 25 police have been injured, 47 people have been arrested. And so I'm just like, okay, going back to the guys from the Royal Parade, they were busy on Monday, but what are they doing today? Go to the next one again. So what are these guys doing today? Because they were busy on Monday, right? But I happened to notice that they, one cavalry charge, that's all I'm saying, put an end to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm joking, but there's something about this that commands respect, though, right? It's like the power, the majesty, actually, use some force on these guys. That's what India and Pakistan are asked for. Look, use force.
Yeah.
Be impressive, be in their faces, and that will actually put them in their place. They'll realize where they are in the hierarchy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sadly, when people are like that or in that phase, sometimes that's the only thing that they understand and respect. They respect the show of power and force.
Yeah. And the reason I use this as the example, because this obviously captures sort of British imperial majesty that seems to have disappeared. And you get lots of commentators who are saying, well, look, this is essentially nothing to do with the British, what's going on in Leicester at the moment. If you go to the next one, you see this chap, Dr. Rakib Hassan, he says, it's time to challenge uncritical views of diversity. The reality is that some of the most severe social tensions in Britain do not involve the white British mainstream at all. That's right. It seems to be nothing to do with the British, in fact. And it seems to be an ethnic Indian or religious Indian and Pakistani thing. Because as you can see from the ethnic breakdown of Leicester, for example, Gujarati, which is an Indian regional language on the border of Pakistan, is 16% of the dialect spoken by residents in Leicester.
Interesting.
Whereas Punjabi is 3% and Urdu is 2%. So you see, right, there is a remarkable representation of this one northwestern area of India, which, because it's so close to Pakistan, has a history of religious conflict with the Pakistanis. And in fact, in 2019, the Hindu nationalists in Gujarat won an overwhelming victory. It was a massive landslide win for the Hindu nationalists. And of course, this has a knock-on effect. So they've got particular chants that they walk through the streets chanting, which are Gujarat Hindu nationalist chants. And there was a video going around of this Muslim couple in a car being like, what, are they allowed to do that? And the woman's like, yeah, you know how we chant Allahu Akbar? Well, they chant that. And it's just like, yeah, exactly. What are you doing?
Do you know one of the... Do you know something that's major here in the West is that, again, like with many things, the understanding of diversity is extremely shallow.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you're talking about within the realm of racial and ethnic diversity, because they literally... especially the lefties, the people who pursue this, they think like all black people are the same.
Yeah.
They think all brown people are the same. They think like they don't know anything about the world. They don't know anything.
No.
So they just see, like they literally use this term, black and brown people.
Yeah.
If those people all get on fine around the world and there's no, they're just, well, this person's black. Like my family's originally from Nigeria.
Sure.
Just within Nigeria, and a lot of people might not know this, Nigeria has over 1,000 languages and over 400 different tribes.
How many white people?
A small number.
A very small number.
Yes, probably less than 0.1% of the population.
So nothing to write home about. They're not obsessing over white people in Nigeria.
No. But my point is that this is within one country in Africa, and you have hundreds and hundreds of different groups. Essentially, imagine all of Europe just being a country.
Yeah, it's not.
That's kind of what Nigeria is like. If it's just okay, well, these people are, you've just kind of drawn on the map. Okay, we're going to just call this a country, and there are clashes and conflicts between the various groups. The northern part of Nigeria is primarily Muslim. The southern part's primarily Christian. You've got all these ethnic groups. You have the same thing, of course. I mean, look at what happened in Rwanda in 1994, if you want to see an extreme example of this between the Hutu and the Tutsi. But from the Western perspective, it's just like, oh, they're brown.
Yeah.
So
they must have a problem with white people.
Yeah, so they're not going to have any awareness of, okay, well, these people are Gujarati, these people are from here, these people are from this region. This is how these all interact, even in their own home nation. It's just like,
and we can see exactly that throughout the course of this podcast, right? So you've got Claudia Webb being like, it's the white supremacist fascism, right? That's causing the Hindus and the Muslims to be in conflict. And then you've got the governments of India and Pakistan essentially demanding that the Queen's Royal Guard go in and separate them from fighting, right? And so it's just like the American frame of the Browns are against the whites is just not true. No, it's not true at all.
No, but that's how they've been trained. They can't see the world outside that very narrow lens.
Exactly. And so you've got this bishop here. Let's play this clip because the framing on this is just mind-bogglingly wrong.
Lots of people are massively concerned about this, saying that actually, it's all very well and good having high levels of immigration, and it's all very well and good having diversity champions, etc., but it's not necessarily going that well.
When we use tick boxes, it won't go well. Diversity is something that must be embraced. I mean, I'm Jamaican Indian, and there are many people in Jamaica from various backgrounds, but they see themselves as Jamaicans. They don't wear any other label. The thing about it is here, number one, we've been burying our head in the sand for far too long to say that we've got a race problem. And now we've got interracial issues as well. We haven't got the traditional race issues anymore between black and white or black and brown-skinned people. We've got that within the actual minority communities now as well. And that's simply because we've never embraced our diversity and we've never really wanted to understand the cultural differences. And remember, we have a load of characteristics in common, but we never seem to share that. We always share the divisiveness that exists between us.
But I mean, what has he actually told us there? We've never embraced our diversity. Well, no, of course Hindus and Muslims have never embraced their diversity. They hate each other. What? As he says, it's nothing to do with the white English population because, of course, they're nowhere near it. They've got nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah.
So everyone's totally blindsided by this inevitable problem that people on the far right have been warning. Well, these guys don't get on.
Yeah, it's because, like I said, that's the only framing that they know. It's a one-trick pony thing, right? They've just decided everything is white supremacy and far-right extremism, and so they cannot approach any topic without reaching that conclusion because that would actually mean thinking.
But that's the thing, isn't it? They don't know how to frame it outside of, well, you guys must be against the whites. It's no, the Indian and Pakistani governments are demanding white supremacy.
Well, some people can't get this, and there's a lot of problems with the progressive worldview. The biggest thing is that it's just detached from reality. But they have this idea because the modern progressives, super far left, because they have this animus against white people in general, animus against conservatives, but certain animus against white people. As a result, they treat minorities with kid gloves, right? They themselves will say only white people even can be racist.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Only white, they're sort of, I call them left-wing white supremacists.
They are.
Right? And so they can't understand that you can have these conflicts within, and in fact, on a global scale, conflicts between non-white people surpass conflicts between non-white people and white people, like the intra-conflict compared to that racial direct. It's not even close. It's like 1,000,000 to 1.
Yeah.
It's not even, but they can't get out of this little box of black and white, literally black and white. It's white people, and then they literally describe the population as white people and people of color.
Yeah,
two categories.
People.
Binary, right?
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that what's on a global scale, what percentage are white people? 10%?
Something like that, yeah. There's
10?
1 billion white people in total. And of course, they're not on the same team.
So
there's Russians.
Maybe 12 to 15% around the globe.
Yeah.
And so they're so obsessed with this thing because they've got such a Western framing. And it's ironic because they're the ones who will be, complaining about other people using Western framings for things. And it's like your whole worldview is based on an extremely narrow part of the world. It's you're just looking at Western Europe, UK, Canada, Australia, USA. Yeah. You think that's the whole world.
And the non-whites can't be allowed to have agency. You know, that's the thing. And the Indians and the Pakistani government are like, British government, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
Like, that's their agency. They're not like, oh, we're subservient to the whites. They're like, wait, stop them fighting.
Yeah,
You know,
we don't want this.
yeah, exactly. We would do that. You've got to do that. And we're like, yeah, but we don't want to be called racist.
Yes.
And it's just like, how pathetic is that?
Yeah.
Anyway, so you get just other comments I saw about this. Just, you know, people like, diversity has destroyed England, endless cultural conflict, London, Leicester, Bradford, an example of that. I wasn't born in the United Kingdom. I was born in a different country and came here as a child. Always respect British values, laws, and cultures. That's what immigration should be about. Respect other cultures if you want your culture to be respected.
That's what I said at the beginning.
Exactly. It's exactly what you said at the beginning.
Yep.
Because that's exactly how this can actually work.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, you end up with these ethnic colonies that end up going to war with ethnic colonies because of conflicts back in the old country.
Yep.
And it's like, oh God.
It's interesting, you know, this concept of multiculturalism and diversity, because these words are just thrown around all the time.
Yeah.
And they're not thought about in much detail. I mean, oftentimes someone will even ask me something like, you know, does multiculturalism work?
No.
Well, I'm not even trying to do a Jordan Peterson, but like, what do you mean?
Well, yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Do you mean, like, can immigrants from different countries and different racial, ethnic, and national backgrounds come to a nation like the UK or the USA and all happily and peacefully coexist and respect each other and so on? Yes, but in order to do so, there have to be some compromises in the cultural aspects, right? You can't. There is a clash between British culture and classically Western liberal values, say, and, you know, very hardline conservative Islamic values, right? These things they're oil and water, right? Someone's gonna have to compromise, right?
And it's got to be the native culture, right? It's like it's unfair to expect the native culture to bend the knee.
I
to this
agree,
new country.
dude. I agree completely. I grew up in one of the most controversial countries that exists. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I lived in Saudi Arabia for 20 years. Okay, in Saudi Arabia, if you go, they opened up tourist visas in 2018. If someone wants to go and visit, right? If you go there, you will be fine. First of all, you'll be fine. Yeah. Just be respectful. Yeah. Just be respectful of their culture. You don't even have to cover up. You don't have to wear a burqa or whatever. Just be if it's Ramadan, don't be walking around and out in public eating a cheeseburger and drinking a soft drink. Like you're gonna offend people because they're all fasting.
Right.
You know, you won't. Okay, you won't be able to do your boozing. Yeah. Right. They don't want pork over there, so don't have pork. Don't bring in pornography. Yeah. Don't do certain pretty basic things, right? Just be be respectful, and they will be super hospitable. Yeah. You'll be treated better than you're treated in your home country. Like just respect it, right? But similarly, to me, I'm like, it's tit for tat, right? If you're gonna come over to the UK or you're gonna go to the USA or whatever,
doesn't mean a queue.
Yeah, you know, embrace the elements of that culture. It doesn't mean you completely lose your heritage at all. Right? Like my parents are very Nigerian and very British. Lots of people like that. You meet Jamaicans, Indians, Pakistanis, whatever, who are, I know some people here who are like some of the most British people I know are not right. They're from like Jamaica or they're from India or whatever, but they're like ultra British in terms of culture.
Yeah. My grandfather was the same. He came from St. Helena, and he loved like English conservatism, basically the strict standards.
Yes.
You know, he was very strict, and like you get this with a lot of Nigerian parents.
Yes.
Like it's just very strict, and they respected the fact that we used to be very strict. And it's like, yeah, we should go back to that.
They're not progressive.
No, they're not.
That's another thing that's very weird with it all, is that most people from these backgrounds are actually far more socially conservative.
You can't afford to be progressive in a lot of these countries. That's the thing,
so it's kind of strange. I think maybe that's a trick that the conservatives, both here and in the States, are kind of missing in terms of building some bridges. I think that oftentimes it's framed as this adversarial relationship, whereas I think I'm like, you guys know that. I mean, if you look at the stuff that's say people who are
Sorry, I'm just having visions like the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. They get their representatives up, and the Labour are like, "You're homophobic." It's like, well, we bring in our Nigerian grandfather, and he's now going to be our representative against you. Good luck, Labour Party member.
Yeah, bringing the Caribbeans and the Africans.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, okay, well, now we're going to talk about homosexuality, and they're going to do it.
Honestly, that's why it's kind of interesting, because British and American social conservatives actually have a lot in common with those groups and demographics in many ways. And I think that's massively overlooked because people get hung up on the race and ethnicity and so-called diversity and so on. And I'm like, it's kind of strange to me that you're letting the crazy progressives kind of own and control that demographic in a way.
Yeah, command the conversation.
Because they're commanding the conversation, and it's like you could probably make some. You could even if it's just down to politics, and it's like you're trying to get people to vote for you.
The policing thing in America was insane, because the Democrats are like, we're going to defund the police, and every single poll, if you go into the black community, it's like, do you want more or less police? They were like, we want more police. And it's just like, okay, Republicans, why are you letting them drop this ball?
Yes.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the live hangouts we do with premium members, this one on our Cyberpunk Dystopia Part 3. And if you want to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.